So over this week, I've been following up an issue about two doctors from France who were quoted in the press to have uttered racial remarks concerning the testing of vaccines on the Africans. And this has sparked rage all over the continent and some parts of the world. Now, the statement that got my attention was the vaccines should be tested on the Africans. There were many other things which they had said, they had discussed, but this was my main focus. And the key word is should. This word sounds to suggest an element of obligation, an element of authority, like the Africans are compelled to comply or to give in to this research or to this proposal. In fact, it loses the sense of being a proposal. It sounds like an obligation. This has even attracted a condemnation from the World Health Organization. Thank God the two researchers have apologized and they have retracted their statements. These statements sounded insensitive and they were targeting a particular race or a particular group of people, mostly the Africans or the blacks. A research is guided by ethical and epistemological norms and principles. Why does it become epistemological? Science is a discipline, it's a study that tries to acquire knowledge through its own procedures and methods. Like science wants to acquire knowledge to solve problems that are at hand. So, how far can it go in trying to acquire that knowledge? How does it become ethical? Because there's a human being who is involved at one particular point. This is a medical or scientific research. For instance, where there's an involvement of a vaccine to be tested on a human being. Because we know that a human being is a subject, not an object. A human being has to consent to this. So, how does science obtain uh, the knowledge that is needed to solve the problem at hand? Like, is it tomorrow for those scientists to test on the Africans without their consent? Now, to what extent can they go to acquire this? Can human rights be violated in the view of trying to obtain knowledge? So, if a research tends to violate the rights of a human being, it becomes unethical and it has to be discarded. Hence, the Africans were somehow justified, in a sense, to react in a strong way against those statements that were uttered by those doctors. However, I wanted to look at the rage or the reaction to these statements. We know that Africa has had a history because the rage itself, in my view or in my perception, it builds from the precedence that is attached to history. We know that Africa has had a history of slavery and colonialism, induced wars, perceived to have been orchestrated by the Westerners. Now, we know and common sense justifies us to think that the Westerners who carried out evils on this continent had accomplices. They had people, they had Africans on their side who helped them to carry out their plans or the evil plans that they would have carried out on the continent. I presume even up to now there are some people who cooperate in a negative way. Africa can still cooperate with the Westerners in a positive way to see to it that the continent develops. Now, because of the evils that have been carried out on this continent, A lot of conspiracy theories have been cooked up and organized in a certain sense that they tend to give us a certain sense of satisfaction. There were some that I used to believe, but now I've started discarding them. Even in the current situation of the COVID-19, there are some there are some interpretations, there are some theories that people are coming up with, trying to assume that the coronavirus was simply created to wipe the black man off the continent. I find this a bit contradicting, because if this virus was created to wipe the black man, how come that they created a thing that would affect their people as well in great numbers? I don't think they would have needed to create something that would first start affecting them, then affecting the black people in insignificant numbers. Um, if the Westerners would have wanted to wipe the black man off the continent, they would have easily done that. I think sometimes we try to act irresponsibly because we still go, or we still buy, we still accept vaccines that come from the perceived enemy, the people that we think want to wipe us out of this, or they want to wipe us off this continent. We still go and import foods and drugs and different things that we consume in our bodies from the same people that we perceive as people who want to wipe us off the continent. I find this to be a serious contradiction. So, the Western civilization that we see today, that we admire today, I think this is a product from the desire by the Westerners themselves to solve their problems. They solved their problems no wonder they were able to have technology, they were able to have science, and to have different kinds of things which we keep on admiring. So Africa has to solve her own problems, and this calls for the Africans to become responsible, to own their problems and solve them. Now, what are the indicators that are going to show that we have become responsible? This goes for building modern hospitals with equipment there and the skilled human resource. Then we would claim that we are really developing, because in most instances it's been evident that when our leaders get sick, they have to be flown off to Europe to go and access proper medical treatment. They can't be treated in their own hospitals because they are not good hospitals and the services are not good enough. Africa has to improve the quality of education that is offered to her people, because every year there are thousands and thousands of people who are graduating from the universities. What happens to their projects which they were coming up with while they were still in school? But instead, what happens once they're done with school? They will still have to work for employment. Why can't their projects which they come up with when they're in school help them to survive even after they complete school? So there has to be a promotion of innovation, like other than waiting for the government to employ the graduates. It means the leaders have to go to harness these brains that graduate from these universities. And then also we have to invest a lot in science and technology, because there's no way we can be able to experiment, we can be able to explore different areas of reality or the environment. It is impossible. Only when there's a lot of investments in science and technology will Africa be able to develop. Because this time, how many countries are carrying out any scientific investigations, or who are carrying out any research in trying to find the cure or the vaccine for any of the diseases that have troubled the continent? So we should stop playing the victim. Yes, we are wounded, but we need to rise up, walk forward, or we need to rise up and move ahead, solve our problems, not perceiving the Westerners or crying whenever a Westerner utters a statement that seems injurious. This does not stop us from reacting to insensitive statements.